So for the second half of our morning, we, as you know, Belva Davis joined us for this morning, the early morning, and now we have Dave Clark joining us for the next half. Dave has been an award-winning newsman for 35 years. He's been in broadcasting for 35 years. He started when he was 17, so I haven't had a chance to ask him about what that special experience might have been about, but maybe some of you will get a chance to ask him about it later. 17 seems like a young age to enter into broadcasting. I was interested in reading about all the places that he has worked. He's been in New York City, in Washington, D.C., he's been in Los Angeles, and I think the most probably interesting for me was the fact that he was in Philadelphia for a number of years. And we know in our Department of Aging and Adult Services that Philadelphia has one of the most interesting and creative network of services for older adults in the country. They have been on the cutting edge of making services and supports really accessible to older adults. And again, as I said, some of the most creative work that we've seen around the country. We've modeled some of the things in San Francisco off of that work in Philadelphia. Dave is also on the board of several civic organizations, including the Challengers Boys and Girls Club and Cure Autism Now. He's happily married to an opera singer and is the father of 3 children. Dave, why don't you take it away?
Well, good morning. Can you hear me? In the back, can you hear me? Well, I can see you too. Good morning. Ann, thank you very much. Heidi, thank you. And if no one told you this morning, you look good today. You really do look good. In fact, you look just like I thought you'd look on TV. First of all, it's a pleasure. I thank God for the opportunity to be here with you for this very, very important conference. This is big. This is important. And one of the things Ann didn't tell you about me, which a lot of people don't know, and not that you particularly have to care, I have a son with a disability. My youngest child, my son, I have 3 children, and my oldest is 30, I've got a 22 and a 19-year-old. And my only son has spent most of his life in and out of intensive care. He's diagnosed autistic, he has a seizure disorder, and he's the greatest young man in the world. My son, and I'm just saying this as a point of context, if people say, well, we see you come to this event, you come in and you don't really care and you leave. Well, I have a son who, why I work on television and my wife is an opera singer, my son doesn't speak. So in 19 years, I've never once heard my son say, "Hi, Dad." But he tells me he loves me every single day. And I'm so happy and fortunate that he's a great young man, and God uses a son who doesn't speak to teach me so many things all day, every day. So, you see, I rarely talk about that because that hits to the core of me. And that's why I've learned the necessary needs of technology to learn and to grow and to do things, and why you and I need the things you're going to hear in just a couple of minutes. I just want to take a quick moment as you get settled. And you're going to have to stop talking because I'm not going to talk over you. See? You too. Yeah, see? Because, see, I'm going to count to 10. and I usually don't have to finish to 10. But when you think of technology in the world today, think of all the things. Now, we can't even imagine what's going to happen a month from now. But think of the things that have been eaten up. We used to have payphones. They're gone. The cell phone ate it up. The cell phone ate up the camera industry. You don't need to buy a camera. The cell phone ate up the watch industry. I don't even wear a watch. I look at the phone. You can go through the list. You don't have to go to the bank anymore. You've seen the commercial. You take a picture of a check and make a deposit. Look at all the things that have changed and change every day. And we can't imagine what's going to happen by Christmas time. And you've got to be ready. You don't even have to go to the pharmacy to say, fill this out. You pick up a phone, punch in, I want this prescription, and then go and get it. Or you send your kids over. Right, I know. Simple points, simple practical points. The things you're learning, the things you're living, that we all are living, it all involves technology. So, in my saying hi to you and applauding you for all the great things you're about to do, I just congratulate you on credit, because you're going to learn it and you're going to do it. And your kids are going to help you, and your nieces and your nephews and grandkids are going to help you, and we'll all learn all this together. Okay? Good. Now, there are two very important people that I get to introduce to you today. Now, one is a very talented lady. Her name is Vicki. And I'm going to tell you about Vicki. Vicki Kamak is her name. She's someone, and I'll just read some of this so you get an idea of who she is. Vicki Kamak, she's a Canadian, by the way. See, that rang a bell. I wonder if I say Vicki's name again, will that bell ring again? But Vicki finds and implements innovative solutions in the social sector. She co-founded something called the Planned Lifetime Advocacy Network, pioneered the development of facilitated personal support networks. Now, as the executive director of Plan Institute of Citizenship and Disability, she became a recognized expert in Canada for developing social networks, social innovation, citizenship, and turning around the world of those who are disabled. She's a founder, the CEO of Ties Personal Network. She's been focusing her skills and her expertise on how best to deliver personal support networks, and has been focusing all of that. She developed the Ties Beta Pro platform, built a team that has done a tremendous amount of things. And I've got to tell you, to be perfectly honest, she's done so many things, I need a calculator to add them all up. But the idea is, she is an expert on building personal networks and coming up with things that will work for you, that will change your lives around. So please, give a warm welcome to a wonderful lady, Vicki Kamak.
Good morning, everyone. What an amazing venue to hold this event in. I've already seen a wedding here. I thought that only happened in movies, actually. And what an incredible city you live in. The vision of people like Ann Hinton and Marie Jobling, who are putting something together where San Francisco will be the most connected city in the world. And the force behind what they're putting together, of when they talk about connections for everyone, they really mean everyone. They're true inspirations for me, for fellow Canadians, and for many of us actually around the world. theme of my presentation today is about staying connected for a good life. And if there are two things that I am passionate about, it is that, staying connected and a good life. And those phrases really sum up the last 20 years of my life in so many ways and what I've dedicated myself to. And so to explore these themes, what I want to do is share with you some ideas about consciously working on making and sustaining connections, which is what I think we all need to do. To get started, though, we're going to talk a little bit about a technology solution, and that's TIE's personal networks. I want to share with you stories, lessons, and some new ideas. But first off, I just want to acknowledge all of you who are here today thinking about trying something new, thinking about a new approach to technology, about using technology differently. Maybe it'll be your first time actually engaging with a computer. You might be feeling a little bit like a fish out of water, and if you are, I really do understand. I am the very last person that anyone in my circle of friends and family would have ever thought would be heading up a tech company. I never thought I would either. And I can tell you, it's a slippery slope once you get started on technology, so I thought I'd just take it a little easy on our introduction and introduce you to a mouse. Now, maybe that wasn't the kind of mouse you were thinking about, but I want to tell you a little story about this mouse. This is a mother mouse, and she was walking down an alley with all of her mouselings on a lovely spring day. And as she was walking down that winding road, pastoral setting, out of the bushes comes a big cat. The cat arches its back and hisses, and the mother mouse gathers her little children around her, gathers herself up, and looks that cat in the eye and goes, ruff, 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 ruff. The cat, completely stunned, turns and runs away. And then the mother mouse looks down and says, "Now, children, let that be a lesson to you. Never underestimate the power of a second language." So as we begin to estimate some of these powers, what I'd like you to do for me is to think about one part of the theme that we're exploring today, which is a good life. And I'd like each of you to just take a moment and reflect on what would be a good life. What are the critical elements for you of a good life? This is a question that philosophers have explored over the ages. And you know, time after time, it's a question that I've explored with families of people with disabilities, with people facing life challenges, with people who are aging. And you know, I'm curious, when you thought about it for yourself, about what would be critical for a good life, how many of you listed family and friends? Yeah, okay. How about making a contribution or participating, being engaged? Okay. Yeah, lots of you. How about good health and having choices? Yeah, okay. So all of these are core elements for sure. But you know how most of our efforts on future planning are focused? Yep, this is it. This is how we have a whole industry thinking about future planning and thinking about what a good life is, and it's focused on money. Here you can see some Canadian money up there. We've got loonies and toonies in that pile of coins there. In any case, I'm really curious about how come money is easy to plan for, but what about planning for people? What about those loved ones, those friends that we all say are so critical to us having a good life? How How many of you actually, when you thought about a good life, put friends and family first? Or how many would you put friends and family being the critical number one element in thinking about the future? Okay. So what do you think it is that makes it easy for us to think about planning for money, but so difficult to plan for people? You know, there's something that makes us hesitant to reach out to others. I mean, some of us can take this idea of independence to an extreme. Right? This, I think, is probably someplace in Newfoundland, a remote shore of Canada. But you know, we've grown up with this myth of independence, and we've come to believe that reaching out to others is a sign of weakness. We see asking for help and support as a vulnerability instead of a necessary strength. So if you agree with me that connections are the key to a good life, I'd like you to explore with me how technology, and in particular, how networks can actually help. I'd like to tell you about TIES and our online personal network service. That is, by the way, installed on every B-top computer in the city of San Francisco. I'd like to explore how this knowledge built on 20 years of supporting people to strengthen connections and secure the future works. So what TIES does is it creates personal, private, secure online networks. Here's what a TIES personal network looks like. This is Jill, and she and her daughter created a TIES network together. And what they did, they created the network in part because Jill is she has an advance in her experience with cancer, and they wanted to coordinate the care and the connections and bring people closer to Jill in this important time. So Jill and her daughter identified who they wanted to invite, and that's the only way you can get on a TIES network is if you get an invitation. You can't be searched, you can't be found. Anyway, you get an invitation because Jill knows you and wants you to join her. And then how they use the TIES network is they use the Connect feature to send messages. So Jill's daughter, Christabel, can send messages to everybody in the network, letting them know how she's doing. They use the calendar to schedule appointments and to organize rides. They use the shared tasks and goals to organize larger events. So for example, when Jill was released from the hospital recently, she was not able to get back into her home because she couldn't get up the stairs anymore. So they used the network to actually build her a ramp one Saturday afternoon. They used the shared files to share information about Jill, and they used the vault as a place where Jill keeps her personal information. So she has on there her advance directives, she has medical records, and so on, that isn't accessible to everybody in the network, but to some of the members. And then there's stories and photos. And this is a place for people in the network to celebrate Jill today, to remember to share memories, and to remember the very important good times that are at the essence of their relationship with Jill in the past and in the present. You might be asking yourselves this question: if you're a Facebook user, how TIES is different from Facebook? And so TIES, what we talk about Facebook, it's what we call open social networking, and it's designed to create many, many relationships. TIES is closed and personal. It's an intimate space. Most of our networks are kind of in the range of 6 to 8 people, as opposed to I have a daughter who's got close to 1,000 Facebook friends, whatever you say about that. TIES has no advertisements on it. There's no data mining. It's private and secure, and it bridges the formal and informal worlds of care and support. And what we've discovered about ties is that people who use it, what they get out of it is what we call the network effect. Let me show you how this works. So here we've got Jill in the center of the network, and you can see on the upper side where you have a healthcare provider who's using a file drop to actually put information into Jill's vault about her healthcare. You have her daughter using the mobile application to actually update people on the go. You've got the neighbor who checks the schedule to see if when he's going shopping, if he can pick something up for Jill or if she needs groceries. So this is an illustration then of the network effect or network model of a good life. And here are the benefits that accrue. The neighbor says, I always check online before I go shopping to see what Jill needs. The physician's assistant says, hey, now it's easy to share Jill's test results. The personal care worker says, I posted about the loose handrail on the front stoop and Jill's network handled it right away. And her sister says, I'm part of a team now. What a relief. And I'm very happy, out of this idea of the network effect, a couple of things. One is that this is what Jill wants. This is Jill's key to a good life. No matter what challenges she's facing, her network is actually her key, her gateway to a good life, and her ability to stay home through thick and thin. Also happy to tell you that we are just about to launch a fully accessible version of Skype into the TIES network, and that will be a touch screen interface for people who want to connect in the network through video. I want to share with you now just a few things that TIES users are saying and telling us about their experience using TIES. 91% of them say that TIES helps them share information, and that's the number one thing that people providing support to us want. 80% say that TIES strengthens connections, and that's kind of interesting. You think, how can using something online actually make us feel closer or more connected to our friends and family? But how it works is that the more information we have, the more connected we feel, the more we know what's going on. Think about if any of you have grandchildren living far away. If they come to visit you and they know that you've recently been to the theater or played cards with friends or had a family dinner, they feel more connected to you if they know you've been to the doctor, all of those things. So this is a way that the technology can help close and people who are close and distant connect with us. And TIES helps people help people. So 75% of our users say that TIES help them to work with others to provide care and support. So today, TIES is 3 years old. We've got thousands of users, and we have learned lots of lessons about connections and a good life. And I want to share 4 lessons with you. Our number one lesson is that no one should have to face illness, disability, or caregiving on their own. Now, there are growing numbers of why we need to pay attention to this, consciously reaching out and thinking about creating our own networks and keeping them informed. Is one major reason is that there are more and more of us living alone. In this city, in San Francisco, 40% of people over 60 live alone. This is unprecedented in human history, actually. So we're more vulnerable in terms of how we're living. We're also more vulnerable because more of us are living with chronic and complex diseases and challenges, and that can limit our capacity to get out and about and so on. So again, consciously creating a network is a very positive thing to do. And then the other side of it is, so aside from just what we might think of as our desires for company and so on, the reality is our health is a social affair. Our health is so intimately tied with our connections and our support. When we have a good network around us, we get sick less often, we heal more quickly, we live longer. And when we're isolated, it impacts things like hospital readmissions, the incidence of illness, the number of doctor's visits, our capacity to handle stress. So again, what we want to really focus on in terms of a number one lesson is that no one should have to face these things alone. And when we consciously reach out to create a network, we're all better off. A second lesson, let's think about the people who want to be involved in our life. And this is really our loved ones, our sons, our daughters, our parents, our relatives, our friends. And what do they want, especially in times as we're aging or facing life challenges and so on? Well, they want information and they want to share the care. They definitely want to be involved. I can assure you of this after, again, over 20 years of working with families and individuals. There is no question that our family members and friends do want to be involved. And some of the challenges that they're facing, though, is that many of the people who might be providing care for us are working. The number of working caregivers has tripled in the last 15 years. And what they need to be able to share is to be able to share the care. Because when they don't, our caregivers, the people who love us, our sons and daughters, our family members, our friends, if they're caring for us alone, their health deteriorates. They often have to leave their jobs, they often have to get a reduction in income, and so on. And then lastly, in terms of this question about our loved ones and how important this is in terms of our own thinking about the future and creating a connected network, is that fully for 80% of people who live in their own home and are receiving care, and this is, by the way, what most of us want. We want basically to be able to live and stay in our homes and in our own space. But for fully 80% of people who receive, let's say, in-home support of some kind, they would not be able to remain in their home without the involvement of friends and family. So again, another critical reason to be really thinking about what our loved ones want and how to support them to be engaged. They want to know how we're doing, they want to be engaged, and our job is to support them to do that. And then what about the young ones? I mean, what does the future want? Well, what we know, not just the young ones, but in fact all of the people who care for us today and who may be caring for us in the future want to use technology. 77% say it's going to save them time, 74% believe it's going to relieve stress. And of course, there's a whole set of a new generation coming up who will expect to be kept informed and make connections online. My nephew just sent me a video of his 2-year-old son in Vancouver having a Skype conversation with his cousins in England, right? So this is indeed the future. And fourthly, as our last lesson, we want to help each other. I really want to reinforce this. A part of our reluctance of reaching out and creating networks is this fear that people are going to say no. A recent community vitality report says that 3/4 of us already actually extend help to family, friends, and neighbors. I want to tell you about a TIES user in northern Scotland. This man's name is Charles. He's 86 years old. He has early stage of dementia. His son John lives in Vancouver. He starts the network. He invites his 2 sisters, one in Sydney, one in Singapore. So this is a family across the miles. But he also invites the neighbor, somebody they actually affectionately refer to as the neighbor lady. And you know what the neighbor says when they ask her to join the TIES network? She says, "Thank goodness you asked. I've been worried about Charles and I didn't want to offer or embarrass him by offering help." Okay? So we want to help each other. So creating those opportunities for others to help us and to create that very meaningful exchange that comes when we're able to provide assistance to others is a piece of consciously creating a network. Now lastly, let me just share a new idea or a new term that I'm using and thinking about this idea of staying connected and having a good life. And this is an idea that I'm calling future-proofing. And this is just a little picture of Dale as somebody who has done his future-proofing. So Dale is somebody who has congestive heart failure, and here's what's happened for him when he went into the hospital. His daughter updated everybody with one message, easier for her. There was emergency contacts, care preferences, and advanced directives, all safe in the vault so that the care providers know what to do. And the supporters, well, they know what his wishes are, and they can share tips and ideas and emotional support for him. So Dale is future-proofed. And I think a piece of this idea of staying connected for a good life is about having some peace of mind as we think about the future. So I encourage you all to continue to think about what makes a good life for you, about what the critical elements of a good life are. And then I encourage you to reach out to others to make it happen. It won't happen in isolation. There is no independence without interdependence. And when we reach out to others, well, everyone benefits. Reaching out and making connections for a good life provides peace of mind for you, but for everyone who loves you as well. And if there's one final message I'd like to leave you with, it is that we are, quite simply, better together. If any of you are interested in learning a little bit more about ties, seeing a live demonstration, I'll be over in the South Court this afternoon and in the lunch break, and I'd be delighted to chat with you. In the meantime, thank you so much.
Oh, come on, give Vicki Kamak a bigger hand than that. That's Vicki. Whoa. Thank you, Vicki. Honestly, Vicki, I learned a lot. I like that Ties network. I mean, just the idea of all the connections and personal and isolated and info. Thank you very, very much. Quick thing, there's a gentleman I'm going to bring up, so I'll get out of the way, but I wanted to mention something about the news business and technology. Hopefully you watch television, but our business is changing by the day so much, and we depend on technology. One, I would feel naked without my phone. I'd feel naked without my iPad. But even when I'm on television, I'm talking by email with people just like you who hey, Dave, do you know about this event? Well, no, I didn't. Well, this is what's happening here at this time, and often we get to do it because we heard it straight from you through email. And you may be saying, well, I don't have your email address. How do I find you? Well, you go on our website and you can find almost anybody there, and you use it. Another thing, our business has changed so much because of cell phones. You're at the place where something is happening, you whip out a phone, take a picture, and with your permission, you send it to us. You get to it before we get there. Now, something happened just last week in San Francisco. There was a big crash right in the heart of the financial district, tied up traffic. We heard about it, but there was so much traffic we couldn't get there. So my colleague, Sal Castaneda, said, if anybody can see this, take a picture of it, send it to us. There was a man on the 24th floor looking out the window with his camera, took a picture, looked at it, sent it to us. We had it on the air in a couple of minutes because of technology, because of things changing so rapidly. It's a brand new world, and we all have to get on board. So, Vicki, thank you for the importance of the Ties network and everything else. Thank you. Next, I want to introduce you to a gentleman. He's tall, dark, handsome. Oh, I'm sorry, that was me. Sorry, wrong script. You too, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's your birthday, right? Okay. No, in all seriousness, there's a gentleman by the name of Dimitri who's here, and I want you to meet him. His name is Dimitri Belzer. Dimitri has worked in the disability community for years, providing technology access for more than 30 years. Trained as a sign language expert and interpreter, He established a deaf services program at San Francisco State University, worked to provide support services for college students who happen to have disability. We don't call them disabled. They happen to have a disability. In 1993, he joined Pacific Bell, helped organize Pac Bell's advisory group for people who happen to have a disability. He gave input to that major company on how to develop accessible features that will help them do better. He became the director of Deaf and Disabled Services. He was selected as executive director of the Center for Accessible Technology in Berkeley in 2001. And what they do, they provide information and training on assistive computer technology so that people who happen to have a disability are able to do things like everybody else. Under Dimitri's direction, they've expanded it. They've done so many different things, I can't even list them all. But the whole idea is, in fact, he sends people out who happen to be disabled, and they test things before they get out there to make sure they're done the right way so they can practically help people. So it's my pleasure right now. And would you give a warm welcome, wake up your hands, and welcome Mr. Dimitri Belzer. Dimitri.
I will. Great. Thank you, Dave. I've just decided who is giving the speech at my memorial service. That was a great introduction. So my talk, I want to talk some about how people with disabilities use computers and the barriers to getting people to use computers. But the first thing I want to talk about is my family. I come from a family of Eastern European immigrants. The members of my parents' generation were mostly born in Europe. All of my grandparents were born there. And so for my grandparents, when they came here, they were older people, and English was not something they were very interested in. My grandparents spoke Russian, Romanian, Yiddish, Hebrew, and German. And so a sixth language? No way. So they learned English, but they really never were very comfortable with it, and they forgot it as soon as they could. So my parents came here also not speaking English, and they really did not want to speak English either, but they were young, and they knew they were going to live their lives in this country, and they were going to have to learn English. So they did, but they never really became that comfortable with it. They always spoke English with a heavy accent, and it was something that was always a struggle for them. And again, as they got older, they didn't want to do it anymore. My father spoke his very last words in Yiddish, and it was a language I hadn't heard him speak in 40 years. But for my generation, we were born here, and we are native English speakers. And despite my slight New York accent, I think you can probably mostly understand me. So when I think about technology and how people use technology, I actually see a parallel in my family, because I think about my parents, and my parents have really become my grandparents' generation. Technology is something they didn't want to learn. My mother has struggled to learn it, and she's learned a little bit, but boy, would she like to forget it. She hates technology. For my generation and for my siblings, we have really become skilled computer users because we've had to. It's something we've had to learn, but I think that we speak technology with an accent, and we don't really know it intuitively. But when I look at my kids are native speakers. My kids understand computers, and you can give them any new computer, and they just use it. It's intuitive, and it's an intuitive feeling that they have that most of us don't. So at the Center for Accessible Technology, we think about this issue a lot, because when you're working with people with disabilities and people who have different kinds of computer stresses, you really have to adjust your thinking to who you're talking to, who you're working with. Our work is really shaped by two beliefs. The first one is that there is no reason to talk about disability with technology, because disabilities exist because of the interaction with the built environment. So when I am working with a client, I don't ask them what their disability is, because that's really irrelevant. We say to them, what do you want to do in the computer? What's the problem you're having with the computer? The print's too small. We can fix that. The mouse is too hard to use. We have other mice you can try. The keyboard's too difficult. We'll try this one. We'll do this. We'll try speech input. We'll do different things to make the technology work, because the technology is really what creates the disability. It's that interaction with the built environment. The other belief that we have is that it's really important to step back from what we know and to listen to our clients, and to really stop putting our beliefs on them. We have to really look at where people are coming from in technology, and really figure out what the issues are that they're having. And the big question that we often ask is, when someone is struggling with a computer, is it a disability issue or is it a learning curve issue? And what we almost find out is that the disability issues are the easy fixes. Small print, hard to use mouse, all of that is very, very easy to fix. But the learning curve issues are really the hard ones for most people. So for example, most seniors do not have a toolbox of strategies for dealing with technology. For those of us who understand computers, we're more familiar with it, and we're more able to figure things out, even if we're not native speakers. So for example, if I'm using a different computer, I may not know where the downloads folder is, but I know it exists. It's somewhere, and I'll look for it. And maybe I'm going to have trouble finding it, but I know it's there. But for someone who doesn't really speak technology as well as I do, they don't know how to look for it. So I have an analogy for you. If you're someone who knows how to drive, and how many people here can drive? And you'll be happy to know I don't. For all of you who drive, have you rented cars? So when you rent a car, you get into a car you're unfamiliar with. So how do you drive it? It's actually kind of miraculous that you do. But the way you drive it is, you don't know where everything is. You don't know where the high beam indicator is, for example, maybe, or you don't know where the turn signals are, or any of those kind of things. But you know they're there. You have the language to drive that car because you know what to look for. You know every car has turn signals, so you're going to look for it. When my parents bought their first car that had a locking gas cap, it had a door over the gas cap, and they went to get gas, and they couldn't open it. And it was because the release for it was by the driver's seat. And it never occurred to them. It was just not a place they would look. They looked for the key, they looked for the lever. It never occurred for them to look inside the car. And so my father eventually climbed into the car, right past the lever, reached in the glove compartment, pulled out a screwdriver, and broke the door open to put gas in the car. So it was just a language that he didn't have. So an experienced computer user is going to know if they're having trouble. I'm going to go to the control panel, and I'm going to look at what's there. But someone who doesn't even know what a control panel is, they have no language to ask for it. So another issue that we find with a lot of seniors in particular is a really high level of frustration with technology. And I talk to my mother about this all the time. My mother hates technology, and she's had to learn so much. I actually just had a conversation the other day, and she was naming all the things she's had to learn, all the things she owns, all the things she hates. And there are things like her DVD player and her VCR, she still has a VCR, her microwave, her cell phone, her cordless phone. There are so many things she's had to learn. In the senior center where she lived, she told me that the most commonly used assistive technology is a 2-inch long piece of black electrical tape. And that black electrical tape is used to cover the flashing light on the VCR and the DVD player. Because my mother says it's a lot easier than learning how to program the clock. So we also find the other sort of stereotype about seniors is that for the most part, a lot of seniors don't trust technology. People have gotten the word, fortunately, that there are risks using technology, and a lot of seniors want to stay away from it. So as much as I've tried to get my mother to do online banking and paying her bills, never going to happen. She is never going to do that. So at the Center for Accessible Technology, we work to really understand the mindset of our clients. And as a result, we have systems in place on how we work with them. So one of the things that we do is we ask people, what do you want to use a computer for? And I can't tell you how many people tell us they've never been asked that. They've been told they need to use a computer, but no one's actually sat down with them and figured out what they need it for. And sometimes we say to people don't have anything they want to use the computer for. But a lot of times they have something in particular. And we really try to focus on something that's going to give them an early success. So that they're going to be able to have some success with the computer. So for example, if someone wants to be able to email their grandchildren so that they can get pictures of their grandkids, they're going to be motivated to push past their technology fear to learn that. At least I keep telling my mother that. But, excuse me. We also have to recognize that one of the things that happens is people come in who have been using technology and they have their own systems for using it, and we let them. We don't try to change how people are using it. And an example of that is my grandmother. My grandmother was a wonderful baker. I miss her, but I miss her baked goods more. But she never had used a stove in the old country that had a thermostat. So what she would do is she'd turn the stove on all the way to broil, and it would heat up like a blast furnace, and then she would turn it off. And she'd put her stuff in and she'd cook it. And if the stove got too cold, she'd blast it again. And it drove my parents crazy. But she made wonderful food, and she was never going to learn this technology, but she'd adapted to it. And so we recognize that people have to do that, and that if people have something that works, you leave it alone. Let's see. So another issue that people have on computers is, and that a real frustration for a lot of seniors, is that things don't show up in the same place. And so we really try to set up people's computers so that it's recognizable. So for example, if you're using a Macintosh and Mac has the dock that has all of the controls on it, you set it so the dock is always visible. So no matter what screen they're on, it's there. You put the icons in a place where they'll always show up so that it's always recognizable to people. I gave my mother recently an iPad, and the iPad is a brilliant piece of technology for seniors because it only has really one button on the front of it, and that's the home button. And so if you don't know what to do, you press that and you go back to the home screen and you start over. And she really loves that. Another really important piece of this is ergonomics, and people forget this a lot, but ergonomics is hugely important. A real reason why people stop using computers is because they say they hurt. And if you don't set up someone's computer system so that they can actually use it in an ergonomic way, it's going to really heighten the chances for their failure. We tell people that it's okay to ask questions. And the problem with that is, once you tell someone it's okay to ask questions, you then have to make it okay to ask questions. So when my mother asked me for the 312th time, how do I attach a picture to an email, I have to stop from going and really like, okay, let me explain it to you. And it's very, very difficult sometimes to say the same things over and over again, but it's an important part of technology success. In preparing for the speech, I was thinking some about how I could give the people here, a lot of people here are pretty experienced technology users. But I'm recognizing that most of us are, if you'll pardon my saying this, a little on the older side. So how can I get you all to understand what it's like to use a computer for our parents and for seniors who've never done it? And I have a great way. Go home and find a 14-year-old boy and ask him to play a video game. I have done this with both of my sons when they were younger. And it is an amazing experience. Because my kids will be playing a game which I am totally not understanding at all. And my kids say, jump. And I go, how? And everything that is so intuitive to them is completely foreign to me. And so the good news about that story I can tell you is that I am at no risk of becoming addicted to video games. The last point I'd really like to make is that the environment is really changing rapidly. 10 years ago, if we had sat down and talked about seniors and technology, a lot of people would be saying, why would seniors want to learn how to use computers? But that has really shifted, and over the next few years, as all of us move toward being seniors, we're not going to actually be wanting technology, we're going to be demanding it. And so the field is really going to change, and more people are going to be here. So the abilities to make technology accessible are there. And that those of us who are charged with doing this have a really important role. We have to be able to provide the tools for the technology in ways that the people can hear. So I'm really happy to be here speaking with you because I think this is an incredibly important topic. This afternoon there's a workshop on addressing multiple barriers for people for accessing technology. And it's going to be a brainstorming session where someone from my office and a couple other people are going to be leading a discussion of what are the issues that people run into and how do you deal with them. I think it's a really important topic, and I think that it's probably one of the most important things that people can be talking about now, because for all of us, technology is here and going to be here, and we all need it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, my name is Marie Jobling, and I'm really pleased to be up here. Well, not really, but I am pleased to be able to tell you about two things before lunch. So if I could just get everybody's attention for just a second. First of all, as you know, this is the middle of a process to train and teach more people how to use computers. And we wanted to showcase a little bit of what folks are learning out there. So first we're going to show a video, and then Linda Lau is going to come up here and explain about lunch. So I know a few people have slipped over there, but I ask everybody to just be quiet for a few minutes. There's plenty of lunches to go around. Okay, so the video we're going to show right now, if we're ready to go, was actually, I got the link this morning at 4 a.m. That just tells you how dedicated people were to be able to produce it and to have it here today. So I wanted to thank Paul Grant, who has worked on the project as a filmer with the Family Service Agency's Senior Community Services Employment Program. You'll see his good work, and also John Boswell, who's with Get a Vision, who came in at the last minute and helped us pull this together. And he did it in exchange for time bank hours with the Bay Area Community Exchange Time Bank. And if you want to know about the time bank, you can learn across the hall after lunch. And finally, from the Broadband Technology Opportunity Program, which is really providing the opportunities for seniors and people with disabilities to teach each other, to learn from each other, and to create more connections across all of our communities. So please cue the video, and after that, we'll dismiss for lunch after a little explanation.
We want people to come into the center and learn how to use all of the different social medias so that they're not left behind. We don't want the whole community to be left behind.
I've always been intimidated by computers, afraid I was going to touch the wrong button, afraid that I would erase everything.
I wanted to learn. I wanted to see if I could, you know. But I wasn't sure because of my age.
I have grandkids and I don't get to see as often as I would like, but my son posts pictures all the time.
I thought it would be important to bring my mom, Minnie, and my sister Barbara down to learn basic computer skills so that they're not isolated. Even the medical community wants to send her, you know, notes and things via email. So it's important for her to learn how to use the computer, at least for those simple things.
We are a part of the social media team who will be teaching Twitter, Facebook, Skype, and ties so that seniors in our community will not be isolated.
There is no dumb question. You know, we try to make this an easy, you know, going environment for everyone to learn here.
Maybe you're not asking the right question, but they understand what you're talking about. I want to get on the internet, and like if I need to call Social Security office or any other business, you know, that I will know how to do. You know, get in touch with them.
People like us who are in wheelchairs, in rehabilitation situations, in hospitals, it opens the windows to the world to us, enables you to put your eyes anywhere in the world that you want to at a moment's notice. I paint with acrylics, and so sometimes I search the internet or put images on the internet through cameras, through different pictures that I take of a subject matter.
My left hand has only one finger on it, and all my life I kind of didn't use this one, but I had to learn how to type and everything with my finger here. So I type 5 words a minute, but I type fine and move the mouse fine on the computer. So there's no real problem, just have to readapt. The secrets of computers is to really know what you want in life and what you're looking for, so you can find them. Everything's on the computer, and easy to find. It's like a roadmap. I have all these blogs, etc., and so on, because I have all this time, and so I can travel. I use the computer for that avenue, that venue of doing that. I have 32. But I concentrate on a few at a time.
I had never expected to have a computer. I'm 96, and so as they say, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, and so and as you say, we do have this resistance to it. My daughter Peggy taught me how to play games, and so I'm really hooked on that now. To exercise my brain. And I started doing other things more quickly. I just find that it really helps me. Use pictures either that I have taken or that other people have taken. If they're on the digital camera, I put them into my computer, and then I can crop the picture or enhance it. I can find out what Safeway has on sale, and then Michael's, they have their ads, and so I do use the people who advertise. Email is a very important part of my life. I love to email, and I like to hear from people. I have trouble hearing people on the phone, and if you send an email and want to answer to a question, they can find it for you and email back, where if you phone, they may not know the answer, and then this means calling you back again. It's been a big help with the family in many ways. Now I cannot be without my computer. I'd be lost.
So many times it becomes your second nature. Then it becomes easier. It's just something that flows out of you. When you need to use it as a tool, it becomes your tool in your hand.
My grandchildren, they just think that's just so wonderful. Mima is on the computer.
I would recommend coming here to learn the computer, because it's not as hard as you think it is.
Don't be afraid, because it really is kind of easy once you get the hang of it.
Go at your own pace. Don't get frustrated.
Don't be afraid of the computer. The only thing to be afraid of is that you'll get addicted to it.
So you'll see some of the stars around. Please thank them for being so brave and consider signing up to be one yourself. So I wanted to invite Dave up again to just to say how much we really appreciate him being a part of today's program, helping shepherd it and to share his own experiences. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. You're very, very kind. And can I just be selfish and say that you inspired me? I'm so happy. Even if I don't see you again or regularly, I'm taking pictures of your faces and thinking of all the successes you're going to make technologically, even when I don't see you. So feel good about it. Don't be afraid of it. Tackle it. It's yours. And congratulations. Thank you for being a wonderful, wonderful audience. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and happy birthday.
Thank you.